Hey, girlfriends, welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha.
And Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
On today's episode, we're discussing how motherhood impacts our friendships and if we really need mom friends. So we definitely have a good episode in store for you today. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and write a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.
Well, I guess we can introduce our special guest, Foss. Welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast.
Yay, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. Actually, the last time that you were on with us, you mentioned a few things about you becoming a mom and mom friends. And I don't know, we wrote it down after that episode. We're like, we got to circle back with Foss on this.
Let's circle back on that. Yeah,
hear a little bit more about what she thinks of it. If you all have been listening to the podcast, she's been on a few times, as well as on our YouTube channel, on our Married at First Sight review. So we're just she's seasoned. She's a resident here.
Yeah. Yay.
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, that topic is it's one that I have a lot to share. I have a lot to say about that topic. So I'm super excited that you all invited me to come and talk about this.
Okay, awesome. So I'll go ahead and kick it off and just ask, so before you became a mom, did you give any thought on how motherhood might impact your friendships?
Yeah, I did. I not only did I give it some thought, I was obsessed with it. Because so as I've said before, but I think it's probably worth giving anyone who might be listening some background on my journey to becoming a mom. I have a long history with endometriosis, ovarian cyst, fibroids, et cetera, all the things, right? And those conditions impacted my fertility. And so my husband and I started trying to get pregnant in, I don't even know what year it was, but I know I was 32. And that felt right to me because my mom was 32 when she had me. So I was like, yes, look at this symmetry, right? Like, look at the poetry of this planning that's going on here. And it did not go symmetrical or poetic at all. It was actually a 10-year process from that point on of multiple surgeries to correct the endometriosis and the cysts, et cetera, and 3 IVF cycles. So 2 cycles that were not successful, and then the third resulted in my amazing powerhouse main character energy daughter. So along those 10 years though, most of my friends were becoming mothers. And I was telling people last night that my baby cousin actually just became a grandmother. And so, I I want to say like a normal time, but that's inappropriate to say. Like it was, she became a grandmother, and everybody's an adult is what I'm meaning by that. Yeah. So I was and I am a lot older than I became a mom at an older age than a lot of my friends did. So as each one of my friends became a mother, the number of people in the crew who were not mothers became smaller and smaller and smaller. And that was a really uncomfortable and at times painful position for me to be in, as my friendships changed to accommodate the new people in our lives, the children in the crew. So, or the next generation, right, of the crew. Yeah. So the thought of how motherhood changed the nature of my friendships was constantly on my mind. I had friends who kind of disappeared into that new role of motherhood. And it felt to me in that space that they no longer really had the room or the energy to do the work of maintaining friendships, and because all of their time and energy was really being funneled into raising a child. So
Yeah.
That was actually going to be my next question. Like, how did your friends handle the transition? But when you had those friends who maybe didn't have the room for the friendships anymore, did that make you think, hey, when it's my turn, here's how I want to do things?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly that. So, you know, listen, all of us are only doing our best. We're doing everything that we can. And I wanted to show grace to those friends who were trying to enter into this new role of motherhood. And as many books and, you know, podcasts and websites and things that you can go to for guidance and help, it really is, each one of us is kind of on our own path. So there's no one way to do it. And um, but I wanted to try my very best to give my friendships as much energy as I could, because I knew what it felt like to be on the outside of that. And so I try to stay very conscious, even still, right? I try to stay very conscious of how that could feel.
Yeah, I can relate to the disappearing. Before I became a mom, one of the things I thought about was, how am I going to be able to juggle having my friends, giving time to my spouse, just trying to find the right balance.
Yeah.
And also, I remember thinking, like, I hope that my friends are okay with what I can give. Like,
Yeah.
I never thought, like, oh, Samira and I's friendship would be non-existent, but I
Right.
did know, at least for a period of time, that things would look different, and that
Sure.
I hope that she'll hang in there with me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Especially
And
when
you
I
know
come
what?
out of the
Yeah,
fog of like the newborn phase.
totally, totally, totally. And I think that it definitely is a test for those friendships, right? So there are some friends who managed that transition beautifully. And there was never a part of my assessment or evaluation or interpretation of our relationship that because they became a mom, our friendship faltered or, you know, changed in a way that I perceived as negative. So there were some friendships that we didn't skip a beat. And then there were some friendships that, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, they went away. And I don't know if I can necessarily blame all of that on the motherhood angle, right? Maybe that friendship itself wasn't really destined to be longer than a season in the first place. And it just so happens that motherhood provided that exit for both of us in the
Yeah.
relationship.
One other thing I thought about too during that season was, how do I continue to relate to my friends outside of motherhood? And so, yes, I've had friends who have had kids before me, but in terms of my close friend groups, my friends who didn't have kids yet, I feel like I was one of the first in terms of like really, really, really close friends. And so I'll use Samira and I as an example. Samira doesn't have children yet. So how do I continue to relate to her? Our friendship can't just be all about the pregnancy and the baby. Well, all those things are exciting, and Samira was super supportive during that time. It's like, okay, well, what do our conversations and our interactions look like to where it's not just all about the baby and the kid now? And she never made me feel like, oh, I'm not interested. This is just where my mind was like, okay, every conversation can't be about that. And in fact, I don't want it to be, because I want to have an adult conversation about other stuff, because I'm all consumed at home.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so funny that you mentioned that because I remember Miosha would get very detailed about whenever we did have those conversations. And I'm like, okay, girl, just hang in there. She would be waiting to tell me all these like different terms and stuff. And not being in that phase, like there's a part of me that's like, okay, like I want some newness whenever I get to that stage, if I decide to get to that stage. But
Yeah.
I think you did a good job of balancing it, but it was very cute when like you had to talk about those things, and
Mhm.
like she took on like an educator role or something like that. So it was very
Yeah.
cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think so I just had I'm actually in a little bit of a situation that speaks to this idea right now where so my daughter is in swim lessons
Mhm.
and I'm not a huge fan of her instructor and I don't know that she's being assessed properly. I'm like that parent, unfortunately, and I really don't want to be, but here we are. This is who I am, where I'm like
Mm.
taking notes on all the things, and I'm sure they wish I would just sit over there and be quiet, but
Yeah.
I'm not that person.
Yeah.
So, in my tightest friend group, there are 5 of us total, and 4 of us are parents, and 1 is not. And so we have a group text, obviously, and so I threw it out to the group. I'm like, listen, how do I not kill this this person who is threatening my child's life in the pool? I need her to be able to swim. And the one who is not a parent was like, um, I don't know what I have to offer because I'm not a parent. And I was like, no, I absolutely want to hear what you have to say on this matter. And the fact that you're not a parent matters very little to me.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is again, I really wanted I I know the sting of being like, no, not you, Michelle, because you're not a parent. I remember how that felt.
Mm,
And so making sure that she knew that how much I value her opinion and her point of view, regardless of whether she's a parent or not. Uh, I think that was important. And she did actually give me some good feedback that I think maybe because she's not a parent, she was
Mhm.
able to access that in a way that parents maybe aren't or maybe don't.
Yeah.
very nice. So, do you feel like motherhood has impacted who you would make friends with now? So, as an adult, as
Ah,
a mom, a new friend, do you think motherhood has impacted that?
um, yes and no.
Okay.
So
Mm.
yes and no. So I think being in a space with my daughter allows me to, I mean, there's like a shortcut, obviously. So when you are in spaces where other parents are, it's like, okay, our kids are here, our kids
Mhm.
like each other, like, that's there's an ease in that that is you can't deny that, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm like, am I really going to say this? Yep, here it comes.
Say it.
Um, I don't know what to say. I find a lot of other parents really annoying, and
Mm.
I feel super judgy around them. And again, I'm a Virgo, so like I'm critical by
Mm.
nature and by training, and it's hard for me to turn that off, right? So if I can see kind of how you parent and that doesn't line up with the way that I parent,
Yes.
I'm disinterested. So like the idea of the mommy groups, like joining in groups of strangers and the only thing that we have in common is the fact that we're mothers, that's a hard no for me.
Mm,
Like that is
Mm.
a hard no. Um because I also really believe that it is so important for me anyway. This is a goal and a standard that I set for myself that I owe it to my child to be as close to a 100% complete human
mm,
as I can possibly be. And if I reduce myself to only the fact that I am her mother, that's not giving you all of the complexity of who I am as a human, right? So I feel like I owe it to her to have hobbies and to have, you know, a job and to have friendships with people and to have, you know, interests and passions and loves and fears and all of those things. And if I don't show her and demonstrate to her that I'm more than just her mom, right? I was a whole person before you even came into the world. If I don't show that to her, then I feel like I'm not really doing my job. So the
Mm.
idea of it's much more attractive to me to be in circles that form around something other than the fact that we are all mothers, or maybe something in addition to, like we're mothers, but we're also this or we're also that. I just feel like for me, that's the way that I want to show up for her. That's the lesson that I'm trying to teach her, is to not reduce herself to just one dimension of her character.
Mm.
Oof, a
Yeah.
word.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's so easy. I mean, and motherhood is one of those things that can definitely do it. But any part of who we are threatens to do
Mhm.
that every minute, right? Like when you're an academic, when you're a scholar, right? It's a huge threat that you become just that, right? Whatever
Mm.
you do for your job, you could become just that. Um, and it's hard work, but I think it's important to kind of um tap in regularly to all of the different parts of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that motherhood has changed how and who I make friends with. I do feel like it has forced me to be way more social than I was before.
Hmm.
Like, I would say I was on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of like 10 being super social and outgoing. I would say I was probably like a 6 or 7.
Okay.
Now I feel like my hand is forced because my child is very social and wants to say hi to everyone and make friends to everyone, to where I end up chatting up random people and they want to get my number. And, I don't
Yeah.
think that there's anything wrong with that. You make a good point in that. I think it is good to have a certain level of closeness with the people or the families that your children may be spending time with,
Yeah.
even if we're just all hanging out together. So you get to know who these people are and their morals and standards.
Yeah.
But yeah, before I became a mom, I would never be at the park making, small talk with random people. I
No.
go to the park to
No.
walk.
Right.
Oh,
With my headphones in,
yeah.
like, do not
Now,
disturb.
I probably need at least 2 to 3 other moms in one park sitting.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Samara's like, whoo, that's that
Yeah.
introvert in her
That's a
coming
lot.
out. Like, I don't know if
Well,
I can do it.
and I'm also an introvert. So I'll be like,
It's
I'll
exhausting.
I'll humor somebody who's like, "Oh, and how old is she?" I'll be like, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to, like a porcupine. I'm trying to activate porcupine and just like, leave us alone." You know what I mean? But that's not good for my girl either. I want her to learn how to interact with people. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I struggle with that.
So you said that you wouldn't likely want to just be a part of a mom group or friend group where the commonality is just you being a mom. But I guess, have you purposefully sought out or avoided those situations? Like, how do you navigate when people are like, oh, we're all moms. We have, I don't know, all our kids in swim lessons, and we should link up for a glass of wine on Saturday. How do you
Yeah.
navigate those types of situations? Like, do you give it a test and then be like, I'm good? Or you just
That
say
was a
no
good
Yeah.
from the gate?
scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there was last year at swim lessons, there was this lady, um, and her kid was cute. Her kid seemed to be like, not that cuteness is like a requirement, you know what I mean? But like, I liked her energy, not, physically cute, but like her energy was really cute. And the mom seemed super cute and funny. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I could see us being friends. And, we would sort of chit chat at the pool and during, and, the lessons are like 25 minutes long. So
Mhm.
there's not a whole lot of time to get in depth and like, oh, what are you afraid of? And like, what are your life goals? It's just like, oh, it's hot today. Yeah. There's not a lot of opportunity to go deep. And then, swim class is 2 weeks long. And after that, that
Yeah.
was it, And so, and I'm just not the kind of person that's going to be like, hey, like, let me get your number. It's the introvert. I'll just be like, well, that was a lovely interaction with that lady. I literally don't know her name and I wish her the best, But
Yeah.
um, so I think for me that I and also we are not completely bottomless wells of time and energy, right? So it's
Mm.
almost like that was a good interaction for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever energy I was about to put into developing a friendship with this stranger,
Mhm.
I can maybe just redirect that into an existing relationship that probably deserves that attention. Um,
Mm.
Yeah.
you know,
I hear you. I had a similar situation, not with a mom, obviously, but on a plane recently, and I had like the loveliest conversation with this lady, and we're in similar like fields, and I'm like, do I want to take this off the plane or not? And I'm still
yeah,
deciding because there is still a way for me to reach out to her, but I don't know. Do I have the energy for yet another person to be in
right,
touch with?
Mm.
I don't know. So I
right.
get it. I wanted to ask, have you ever experienced like the competitive spirit in a mom? So whether it's at a
Mm,
birthday party or I don't want to keep coming to swim lessons, but
right.
wherever it is, have you experienced that? And if so, how have you navigated it?
Yeah. So I don't think that I have seen it yet,
Okay.
but I mean, I know it exists, right? I can feel that it exists, but I don't think that particular thing has been directed toward me or toward my child yet.
Oh.
But she's just now
Mm.
going into kindergarten. And so that's going to change. It
Mm-hmm.
is. I know for a fact I'm going to see it in this next stage of her life, right? Um, but what I have experienced is exactly the opposite, as a matter of fact, which has been really, really cool. So again, back to swim lessons, right? The super cool lady from last year, I don't know, she's gone. Maybe they moved. Um, I'm like looking for her. It's okay. Um, but there's another super cool lady this time, and she, again, we exchanged names maybe on the first day just because she threw it out there. So I'm like, okay. So shout out to you, Mary. But but, but she so when my daughter's in the pool and doing her thing, Mary will just be like, you know what, she's gonna be swimming in no time. Look at her go, stuff like that, where it's very like we're all a community. We're here trying to get our kids, especially our kids, right?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Especially because there is such a cultural and a social stigma attached to Black kids and swimming,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and being in the water, that, I'm rooting for her two nieces and she's rooting for my girl. And it's like, um, that's been really lovely to experience. So I've actually had more of that kind of thing than I have the competition, but I'm fastening my seatbelt.
Mm. Yeah. I feel like because my son is younger, I haven't experienced the competitiveness in moms. I think more so maybe the judginess I've observed around just maybe how you may be navigating motherhood
Sure.
in
Yeah.
terms of things you're doing with your kid or not doing,
Yeah.
breastfeeding, co-sleeping, baby led weaning or
Oh,
not,
yeah.
so I'm past
Yeah.
that phase, but because my kid isn't in school yet, can't say that I've experienced the competitiveness, but just
Yeah.
the one upping of like, oh well, I breastfed for 5 years, not that extreme,
Yes.
but
Yeah. No,
or like, oh, I would
you're so
never
right.
put my baby in their crib by themselves
Mhm.
at 6 months. Well, good for you, girl, and I feel bad for your sleep.
Yeah, right. Right. So that's so funny that you mentioned that because oh gosh, I didn't bring it down here, but maybe I can take a quick second to pull it up here. But I I had forgotten about all of the competitiveness around that baby stage.
Mm.
It's been long enough that it's been long enough for me to have forgotten that, but you are so right, especially because of the following things. Number one, I had my daughter through IVF. So there was a lot of judging and like, oh gosh, oh, you did, you poor thing. Cause I mean, I just literally tripped and I was pregnant and then I was pregnant again and then blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like the women who are like aggressively fertile
Yeah.
Wow.
came,
Aggressive.
I mean, um, they were tough to deal with a little bit and super judgy and competitive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, uh, just all right. Number two, the fact that I had a planned C-section. And so
Mm.
women telling their birth stories or, people who birth telling their birth stories, like it's a badge of honor,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to deliver the baby one way or the other. Either way, there was a human in my body
Yeah.
and the human is now outside of my body. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's not a competition.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't mean that your child is somehow better than mine because mine needed a little extra help um, coming into the world. And then the third thing, and I actually wrote a chapter for a book about this, and it was about television. So again, I'm
Mm.
the TV doctor, right? And television is my profession. It is my passion. It's a huge feature in my life. And when the doctor, in our first couple of visits to the doctor, they would be like, okay, well, no TV for the babies. And then she got a little bit older and they're like, you really, really don't want them to be watching TV. And I was like, how? How do I do that?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to be able to do that. And every book that I ever read and every blog and every conversation, the the amount of TV that I watch in order to do what I do outside of my motherhood kind of required the television to be on and her to be exposed to television, right?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I wrote a chapter about that, and I really took a page out of my mom's book, which was, obviously you don't want to sit the kid in front of the TV and just walk away, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you don't want it to be extreme, but at the same time, television is a storyteller. And if you use it as a way to kind of supplement your stories, or if your stories are supplementing what the kid is experiencing on TV, there can be some good. It doesn't have to be all bad,
Mm.
the medium. So yeah,
Mm.
I do remember feeling very um in a competition that I didn't remember entering uh
Yeah.
in a lot of those ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
that has settled down though.
okay. So in a perfect ideal mom friend group,
Yeah.
what are some of the characteristics you'd be looking for you to feel like, yeah, I could do this?
Hmm. Like I could be friends with this group of parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So um I'm looking for those people who are whole. I like
Mhm.
interacting with whole people where you are, and I don't know if whole is the right way to describe it, but I'm so drawn to people who each one of the things that they do is a thing on a list of things that they do, right?
Mhm.
So we have to have something else to talk about other than our kids.
Yes, Lord.
We have to, period. And I think that might be the only qualification. Like, you know, I would want you to be the same qualities that I have in any friendship. And the fact that you're a mom and we can talk about kid stuff, um, that should be just like one little part of it. But please let us have something to talk about other than motherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miosha, how about you? I want to hear.
Hmm.
She's like, let me know.
I was blessed in, so I don't have to deal with this, but
I'd agree with everything that Foss said. I'd add that I would not just want us to talk about other things, but be active in doing other things. So
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
connecting, like, oh, we're going to go on a winery tour. Like, I want to be active, get out.
And the kids can't come.
Yeah, no
Right.
kids allowed.
Yeah, right.
You know, or be
Yeah.
open if I felt like it to taking a girls trip or something like that, where we're not just talking about other things, but providing a space for us to be social and engage with each other outside of the day-to-day motherhood and responsibility. So all those things she said, plus get out there and do other things.
Yeah.
And that's also something that I would have in my own personal friend group where I was like, oh, we could take a trip together. We can go have, you know, a glass of wine and talk about the Real Housewives or something, just to escape you know, the day-to-day that we already invest so much time and energy in. So why give it more?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how would you guys feel about like just having mom friends? You know how people have work friends where it's like, okay, we come to this job and y'all are cool to hang out with during 9 to 5, but outside of it, we don't really hang out with each other. How would you guys feel about that for a mom group? Because like when I think about this question, I'm like, oh, my friends would just be my friends, and then those other people would be on the side. If every once in a while one person like bleeds over into
they get promoted.
Exactly, to a regular friend, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I think that's how I was imagining it. Like, okay, mom friends over here, real friends over here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's exactly that.
I could see that. And I think I'm already headed in that direction of building relationships with other women who are moms. And that's our thing that we have in common. I'll say, I don't know that I go into it expecting that we're going to be more than that. But I think that's because I'm very content with the friends that I have. Some of them happen to be moms, some of them aren't. But I do think that if I was in a space of I didn't have that, then I think I would be even more open to like, okay, maybe there is more here if I find out we have other things in common. But yeah. And I think it also could provide a space for you to lean on them in terms of advice, and they're in the same boat. And I do find myself reaching to other moms, you know, maybe their children are a little bit older, just to get their advice or feedback. Like the gym I go to, my kid takes swim lessons there, but they go to like the childcare center. So I want to be friendly with the other moms to get the rundown. So how y'all like it? Anything happen when we ain't been here that I need to know about? I feel like you do have to build that sense of camaraderie with other moms. To where they feel comfortable opening up to you, to be like, oh girl, you didn't hear about this incident that happened?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's such an important point to make, that have I have to acknowledge how fortunate I've been to have the community and the village that I have, right? So I already had a strong community before I became a mother. And so I was able to just kind of turn around and be like, oh, I have everything that I could possibly need in
Yeah.
terms of support and advice and you know, friendship. Like I'm good with my, you know, existing community, but not everybody has that, you know? And so I don't want to make it seem like I am invalidating the idea of a mom friend group or a circle of friends who happen to be also moms. Because the bottom line is that you need that support. You need that, you know, you need people to go to. And so you got to get them if you don't already have them, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I want to ask this because we bonded over a TV show that is actually now on Netflix, I've heard. But we bonded over Insecure, and there was a season where a character in there was with child she was expecting, and it impacted the friendship. So
Yeah.
we'd love to hear your opinion about how you feel like the media has portrayed this like very real transition, especially
Mhm.
within friendships.
Yeah. So the thing that I liked so much about that particular portrayal of Tiffany in the friend group. So one of the like you said, one of the friends became a parent before anybody else in the crew.
Mhm.
Um, and it was not easy for her. And those friendships were absolutely tested. And that's not something that we typically get to see, right? It's almost like the dominant narrative
Mhm.
is that it's the equivalent of the show goes on like summer hiatus and you come back and it's like boom, well now I have a kid, cool, right? And then we just do to the next commercial break. And that's not how life works, right? So the fact that Insecure showed us that there are bumps along the way, I felt like that was authentic. And there have and I think there are a lot of people who were hoping to see that narrative of it's not going to be all, you know, wrapped up with a nice little happily ever after at the end. But it can be, right?
Yeah.
So their friendship in that show, by the time the show ended, they were back on track.
Yeah.
And so it may not be bumpy. It may not be what you had scripted in your mind.
Mhm.
And all of it is okay. So I think that show stands out for me. And there's a lot of other shows that are kind of selling a story that is aspirational, but maybe not that relational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were talking, I also thought about Girlfriends,
Mhm.
because there was that transition with Joan and Tony where Tony has the child and she
Yeah.
really struggled. Like
Yeah.
she really had a rough time. But also like
Yeah.
this maybe Tony expecting that Joan would want to take care of the baby more.
Yeah.
And
Right.
as much as I
Right.
adore my friends, like
Yes.
I don't necessarily want to be the go-to babysitter. Like, I don't
Right.
mind it like every once in
Right.
a while because I do feel like, oh, I'm a part of a village for this
Mhm.
child. But if every weekend I'm the one you're hitting up, I might be like, listen, I just don't want to ruin it for if I decide to
Right.
get to that phase of my life. Like just let me maybe take
Yeah.
the baby once a quarter or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we have a segment that we want to go to, which is called This or That.
Ooh.
And every time we do this segment, we try to tie it to the topic of the episode. And
Okay.
today's no different. So I'm going to give you guys a this or that, and I'd love to hear your responses. Okay.
Okay.
So, would you rather be the first one in your group to have children or the last one in your friend group to have children and why? And Foss, will
Ooh.
start with you.
Oh no.
You're our special guest.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one in my crew to like the group of five that I was telling
Mhm.
you about,
Mhm.
the first one in the crew um had twins who
Wow.
are the light of our lives. They just finished their first year of college.
Wow.
And yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. And they, watching them be at the, oh, I'm going to get emotional. Hold on.
Oh.
Watching them be at the age that we were when we met each other,
Mm.
and thinking that they could be forming the relationships right now that are going to last for the rest of their lives, and like they could be meeting their us
Yeah.
right now, is just so, it's a lot. You know what I mean? Just emotionally, it's a lot. And because that particular friend was the first, we had so much energy to, like, you know, really love on them in a special way. And it was fantastic for us because she was already there, having been a parent first. So as each one of us, you know, had kids and had second kids, and you know, there were new challenges, and she's the only one that has been through all of the things so far, right? Um, but even though we had a lot of energy and um, we did our best, a lot of us were still, like, you know, doing our very, like, non-kids having, you know, lives.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if she felt the support from us that, in my mind, I would like to think that we were giving her.
Yeah.
So I may or may not be the last in the crew. But I think I choose last.
Got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miosha?
I choose last.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like if you had a baby before me, I'd be fine with that. Girl, show me the ropes. Especially when it
Yeah.
comes to pregnancy.
Yeah.
Girl, let me know what's coming.
Right.
That is
Right.
hilarious. Yeah.
I just felt not blindsided, but I was definitely that person who went into pregnancy not knowing a whole lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had had someone very close to me, especially if we lived in the same place, that would have been even better, having a person or two before me go through it, so I could have
Yeah.
some idea of.
Right.
It's because one thing to like read a book, but to
Mm.
physically see, and then you're confiding in someone who you trust and you know
Right.
their opinion, and yeah, I'd be last. Yeah.
And they're going to give it to you like no
Real.
chaser.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Very straight.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about
Okay.
you, Samaria?
I would say definitely not first. So since last is the only other option, I'll pick that one. Definitely not first. Yeah, I don't feel like I need to be ahead of the group with that particular thing. Like I can
Yeah.
wait it out. And
Yeah.
among my best friends, or I have a new best friend like within the last 5 years, but my two best friends of 15 years, Miosha and Shamika, who's also been on the podcast. I am the last technically, so I'm sure you guys will have a lot of experience and knowledge for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question. Would you rather go on vacation with your family and another family, so like you and your kid, the other family, their kids, or would you rather do a family vacation with your immediate family and your extended family? And pause. Yeah.
Oh.
You're going first on all the questions.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I would. So I think if I'm going on a vacation, like if I'm just imagining,
Yeah.
again, the 5 women in my crew and all of their families.
Yeah.
That sounds like heaven. That sounds amazing. It really does. It sounds amazing to me because finding the right time and the right location and just everything that it would take to bring 5 families together to be in the same place and the same time, and having our kids get to interact with each
Yeah.
other and get to know each other. Like that's their cousins, that's their
Mhm.
family. That sounds so beautiful and perfect. And there's no way I could choose anything other than that.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fair.
fair.
Miosha?
Mm. Hmm. Ah, so I'm gonna go with because I go to see my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's like I'm gonna see them anyways. But the other thing I was thinking about is I feel like when you're with family, there's this obligation a bit to take care of your
Mm-hmm.
family members' kids to
Yeah.
a different extent or different level
Mhm.
than your friends' kids. Like I don't think
Yeah.
there's this
That's true.
expectation or obligation. Like I would never expect, oh, Samira, you're gonna come watch my kid while I go off and
Right.
do whatever. Or
Right.
but with family, obviously you're very comfortable. You're like, oh girl, you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
At
That's
least
true.
family tries to be that way. So I'd say friends only because I feel like if we all go somewhere with our kids, we know, okay, your kids are your responsibility, unless
Yeah.
we agree and we
Yeah.
tag team it and it's
Yes.
organized
Yes.
versus family. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
y'all watching all the kids tonight. It's like, okay.
Yeah. That's funny. I feel like that's an obligation I take on. Like nobody else requires it of me, but I'll
Mhm.
be like, such and such, get over here. You're too close to the road.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
me. So I would also pick another friend in their family because the other one feels too much like a family reunion, and I love those.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
But if we're gonna have those anyway, I'll see y'all at the reunion, not on my
Right.
vacation. So
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I
I
too
agree.
agree. Okay, last one.
Okay.
Would you rather watch your friends' kids or have your friends watch your kids?
Mm.
Yep. We'll start with the applause.
Oh. um, that even so would I rather my kid go away from me and be with them,
Yes.
or would I rather their kids go away from them and be with me?
Mhm.
Yes.
I I love my friends' kids,
Mhm.
and I would want selfishly to have them all of the time. Um, I want them to know me very well. I would love that. However, because I am in charge of raising my daughter,
Mm.
I would want that her to go to them,
Mhm.
because of what I know they have to offer her. So just in terms of like her being able to experience them, it's
Yeah.
like selfishly, I want that for her. So I would have to choose
Hmm.
that one. But it's
Mhm.
not because I don't want their kids.
Mhm.
I love their kids and I would love to have time with them. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Neosha.
So I'm the opposite, but I think it's because I think a lot of the people I know have more than one child. So I
Mhm.
would be like, okay, your kids can come to me to give them a break since I only have one kid. And not
Yeah.
that it's easy, but it is easier than having two or three
Easier. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
versus me sending my one kid and you have two or three
Right.
kids. So it's like adding more to their load. But yeah, that would be my reasoning. If they only had one kid, then I guess it wouldn't matter. But I would be like, oh no, like you already have a lot more on your plate.
Mm.
Yeah.
You have a break versus me adding a whole nother kid.
Hmm. I told you I was being selfish.
Yeah.
So
Y'all, I feel like your answers are so sweet. And probably because you guys are actual moms, so you're like really weighing stuff out. I can
you're
see it
like, well,
going
it
both
depends on the friend.
right.
Yeah,
That's
that
true.
too.
No.
Yeah, I can see it going both ways. So if I were to say that I would want their kids to come to me, which is I think the route that I think I'll go. for this question. It's because I like to have some type of control over like routines and what you're consuming, what you're like, yeah, I want to have some control. And not that I don't trust my friends. I think all of my friends are great. But I can be a little bit of a control of a control freak. So
the first step is admitting.
yeah, you know, and even that was hard. So
right, exactly. I'm
I
with
will
you.
say-
I'm the same way. I'm controlling like that as well, but that's why I feel like that's a good challenge for those of us who are kind of control freaks to be like, no, you don't have the control right now. So, you know, I know.
to give your kids exposure to
Trust me, I know.
something
Yeah.
That's right.
different. Yeah.
That's right.
I would
Yeah.
say I would send my kid to Samaria because I know she gonna keep them in check.
I follow all the parents' rules. Like if you send your child to me and you say no sweets, like they won't see a sweet thing the whole, like I will make vegetables fun, you know? So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I would love to take care of other people's kids. So yeah.
All right.
All right, that was the last round. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals Podcast. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. Don't forget to rate, review, and share. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.